Hello and welcome to Reaching for the Moon, presented by Everglades Moon Local Council, Florida chapter of Covenant of the Goddess. COG supports individual works by its covens, members, and local councils. It's a vibrant network of a myriad of Wiccan and witchy resources, religious support, friendships, service opportunities, and more. To find out more, visit our website, emlc.net, our Facebook page, facebook.com/EvergladesMoon, or Twitter, @EMLCTweets.
Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 38, Yule 2017. This is Lady Bridget, and we have a wonderful show for you today. We're going to start with my segment about the Yule Tree and what the decorations mean, what they symbolize on the Yule Tree. Then we'll follow that up with Coyote Morningstar's Sea Magic. He's going to talk about making witch bottles. We'll have our Ancestor segment with Rayna, talking about the beloved dead at Yule. And then Alpandia is going to interview Coyote Morningstar about the Morganic Tradition as part of her Get to Know EMLC and the wonderful traditions that make up our local council. Of course, we will have music and songs, and I will introduce those as they occur. I hope you enjoy our podcast, and I hope you have a wonderful and merry Yule. Blessed be.
Sing ho for the mead passed round the fire, ho for the brewer with sticky hands, sing ho for the drinker who won't tire, ho for the gods of our green land. The goddess sends the bees to fly, they distill the flowers' love, into the honey we'll put fun, for baking and cooking and brewing mead. Sing ho for the mead passed round the fire, ho for the brewer with sticky hands, sing ho for the drinker who won't tire, ho for the gods of our green land. The transformation will arrive when water, yeast, and honey sweet, with the touch of magic bring to life, becoming our mystical, marvelous mead. Sing ho for the mead passed round the fire, ho for the brewer with sticky hands, sing ho for the drinker who won't tire, ho for the gods of our green land. We pass a bottle in the night, taste and test each other's wares, our faces lit by bonfire light, our laughter powered by marvelous mead. Sing ho for the mead passed round the fire, ho for the brewer with sticky hands, sing ho for the drinker who won't tire, ho for the gods of our green land. The evening slips along toward dawn, and lovers slip into the trees to celebrate quite privately the honey delights of marvelous mead. Sing ho for the mead passed round the fire, ho for the brewer with sticky hands, sing ho for the drinker who won't tire, ho for the gods of our green land.
And that song was Sing Ho for the Mead by the Crow Women, who are also members of Covenant of the Goddess. And that was from their album, Crow Magic. You can learn more about Crow Women, and you can purchase their music on cdbaby.com.
Hello everyone, this is Lady Bridget, and I'm going to tell you what the decorations on the Yule tree mean. Many people do use evergreen trees in their homes and decorate them, because many of us have other family members who celebrate other holidays. Although we all know that the winter solstice is pagan, and as we gather around our Yule tree, before we start decorating it, we should learn where these traditions started and what they mean. The tree itself has its beginnings in the worship of the trees by the Druids. So, yes, the tree started out as a pagan symbol. The evergreen is special because it never loses its leaves. It represents eternal life. Just like holly and mistletoe, it would be the one green thing in the middle of all that white snow. And any place outside of the equator zones, you're going to have trees that lose their leaves, and so they would have bare branches. But the evergreen trees would constantly be green. And so there you go, eternal life. They're not part of the life and death cycle. Decorated trees were used in Saturnalia rites in ancient Greece as well as in some Celtic rites. But the first indoor decorated trees started in Germany, at least the ones that historically were documented, in 1605. Later, during the visit of Prince Albert from England, he went to Germany, and he was so taken with the custom of bringing a live tree indoors to decorate that when he returned to England, his mother, Queen Victoria, continued the tradition in the palace just for him. And so the idea traveled from Germany to England in the 1750s, and then it became popular in England, and then, of course, as the English came to America, they brought this custom with them as well. Now, in the tree, the decorations are also reminiscent of old traditions. The lights are our newer and safer version of candles, which were lit to encourage and give energy to the newborn son to strengthen his growth and return. Same reason that bonfires were lit at this time of year. Mostly bonfires were lit at all the solar festivals, but at the winter solstice, when the sun was at its weakest point, many fires and candles were lit to encourage the sun to return and to aid in his growth. Anything reflective on the tree, such as glass balls, were also used to increase this energy, as well as to reflect away negative spirits or envy or the malocchio, the evil eye. So garland represents many things. Snakes, which are sacred to the goddess, and also secrets. The symbolism is that the end of the garland is never seen. So it symbolizes also the never-ending cycle of life and death and rebirth. The ends of the garland are traditionally buried so that they are hidden, and so it gives the impression that the garland is a never-ending circle. Candy canes are a reminder of the renewal of all life. They are symbolic of the maypole. Remember, on the maypole, traditionally red and white were for the blood and milk of the mother. Some say red for the mother, white for the father. It really depends on your tradition. But the red and white were traditional colors used for the maypole. And so they also are on the candy canes. The shape was changed to be convenient to stay on the tree so that they'd be hooked on the tree. Some people say that the hook, the candy cane, is reminiscent of the shepherd's crook. So you can believe whatever you like. Bells purify the air of negative energies, and they summon in friendly spirits. They also call the fairies. Tinsel and icicles are fertility magic. They're fertility magic because they look like rain, and they symbolize the rain that comes in the spring to fertilize the earth. We also put on other ornaments on our tree. We put in Santa Claus, who is Father Christmas, and he symbolizes the spirit of goodwill. And the name Santa Claus refers to the Nordic or Germanic deity who was absorbed into modern traditions. And yes, Santa Claus is definitely pagan. The star on the top of the tree is our own pentagram, the four elements of air, fire, water, and earth overseen by spirit. The star is also, another meaning of it is enlightenment, a goal to be attained after long study or many lifetimes. So that is a little bit of what the decorations on the tree stand for, what they represent, how they come about. So when you're decorating your Yule bush, or if you want to call it a Christmas tree, call it what you like, decorate it any way you like, make it yours. Because remember, it started out as pagan, and the decorations on the tree symbolize a lot of pagan energies and deities. So enjoy, and blessed be.
Welcome to Sea Spells by the Seashore. I am Coyote Morningstar, a water warlock and sea witch of West Palm Beach, and a solitary member of Everglades Moon. Today, we're going to talk about a sea witch bottle. I first came across the idea of a sea witch bottle when I read Scott Cunningham's book Earth Power back in the late 80s, and I've been fascinated by them ever since. I studied about them, learned about the traditional uses of them, and found out that traditionally, witch bottles were used as an apotropaic charm to ward off the work of malevolent magic users or spirits sent by magic users or conjurers or witches. Any ill will directed toward the owner of the bottle. The bottle contains personal effects such as hair, fingernails, toenails, urine, saliva, blood, and or semen. All of these things from the owner of the bottle. And through sympathetic magic, any hexes or curses thrown at the person will be drawn to the bottle instead. Some of the bottles will have the hex turn back onto the sender, and some of the bottles will trap the hex in the bottle to shred it and destroy it. Usually, the bottle will be buried on the property somewhere, either underneath the fireplace or the hearth, sealed up behind the wall by the front door, or buried underneath the main porch. Sometimes if you don't have a yard or if you live in an apartment, you can bury your witch bottle in a flower pot near the front door. Some witch bottles are buried or secured elsewhere, like off of the owner's property, like in a bog or a swamp. Other items included in the witch bottle include sharp things to puncture and snare, like bent pins and nails, thorns and burrs, broken glass and mirror. Some say don't break a mirror purposely or else it'll bring bad luck. Others say if you are breaking it for the spell, the bad luck will be diverted to the contents of the witch bottle, and the bad luck will be turned towards the hex or the curse thrower. Also, things to tangle and knot, like loose threads, twine, net, or fishing line. Things to burn and thirst, like salt, hot peppers, dead fire ants or vinegar. And things that make it specifically a sea witch bottle. For a sea witch bottle, Scott Cunningham described one in his book Earth Power, and it didn't include things like personal effects or the idea of turning the curse back to the sender. And I wanted to bring that back. I wanted to bring those traditional elements back to the sea witch bottle. So I kind of adapted a little bit from Cunningham's description. For the bottle itself, it should be glass or earthenware, no plastic, absolutely no plastic. It doesn't have to be pretty. It's going to be buried out of sight. And I like to use mason jars. They're very convenient. They have a wide mouth to get items in. And like I said, it doesn't have to be pretty. They're going to be buried. Although sometimes while beachcombing, I'll find a perfect bottle washed up on the beach with dead barnacles attached to it and sand in it already and things like that. Those make perfect sea witch bottles, or any kind of for any kind of bottle magic. If it's not going to be buried or something, if it's going to be used for some other purpose, some other modern purpose that witch bottles are used for nowadays. The first item in the bottle is going to be sand, preferably collected from the beach, though store-bought can be used in a pinch. Next, for the sharp and spiky, you want to add like rusty fishing hooks, sand spurs, and goat head thorns. Sharp broken shells or pointy univalve shells, and urchin spines. For tangling, you could use a fishing line, netting, seaweed. If you've ever been swimming and gotten your legs tangled in seaweed, you know exactly what I'm talking about for the tangling. Spiraling univalve shells like conchs and whelks can be used to trap spirits and curses, or to draw them inside and trap them like a maze. And other items can include crab claws to grab the curse or spirit and never let it go. Also, dried sea jellies We have dried manowar get washed up on the beaches in Palm Beach all the time, and they can be ground down to a fine powder or left whole and thrown into this sea witch bottle to burn and sting. And then the last item to be added to the witch bottle is going to be the seawater, and preferably that's collected during the ebbing low tide. Low tide would be best, and a low tide during a new moon or dark moon is the best of all. Although any seawater will do, and in a pinch you can make your own seawater. Just add sea salt to filter tap water. Now when you add all the ingredients, and the last item is the seawater, as you're adding that seawater, you can use this chant written by Scott Cunningham. Waves on sand, the tides in motion, you are now a silent ocean. Avert all evil to the sea, this is my will, so mote it be. And you can adapt that, make it your own. I particularly like this one. It's sending the evil to the sea. Now, nowadays, with environmental concerns and ecological damages that are happening right now in the world, the first instinct is not to send things of malevolent nature to the sea. However, the way I look at it is the depths of the sea at the very bottom, where minimal life exists, crushing pressure and cold of the deep will take that curse or malevolent spirit and crush the life out of it so it can harm no one. So I have no problem sending any ill will sent towards me into the depths of the sea. That's why I use ebb tide water, that drawing nature of the ebb tide, sucking it into the sea. All right, so that is my sea witch bottle. I'll add some things, traditional nature. I like mirrors. Mirrors are a type of water magic. Broken mirrors, I find those sometimes. I personally don't break my own mirrors for spells. I'll rely on things that I found. I'm a collector. When I walk, browse, I find broken things, broken glass. Like I said, I find rusty fishing hooks and fishing line walking up and down the seawall. So beachcombing is very important, and being observant when you're walking in nature and in the city. So blessed be everyone, and happy Yule, and we'll see you next time.
I am love. I am love. I am worthy. I am worthy. I am love. I am love. I am worthy. I am worthy. I am love. I am love. I am worthy. I am worthy. The sun does shine for me. The sun does shine for me. I am loved. I am loved. I am worthy. I am worthy. I am loved. I am loved. I am worthy. I am worthy. I am loved. I am loved. I am worthy. I am worthy. The moon does shine for me. The moon does shine for me. I am loved. I am loved. I am worthy. I am worthy. I am loved. I am loved. I am worthy. I am worthy. am loved. I am loved. I am worthy. I am worthy. The stars do shine for me. The stars do shine for me. I am loved. I am worthy. I am loved. I am worthy. I am loved. I am worthy. The sun does shine for me. The moon does shine for me. The stars do shine for me. The sun does shine for me.
That song was called Worthy by Mama Gina from her album I Remember Love. You can learn more about Mama Gina and, best of all, buy her music at mamaginamusic.com.
Those who have died have never left. The dead have all passed with the living. Busy ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters.
Hello, everyone. This is Rayna Templeby with a new episode of the Beloved Dead podcast. This time we are approaching the season of Yule, the winter solstice, when the light returns and the sun is reborn. And since many of us are busy preparing gifts for our loved ones, I thought we would talk about heirlooms and other kinds of gifts from the ancestors. This is a season of gifting, and we can think about the things that we have inherited, if they've been fortunate enough to inherit things, as one of the most tangible ways we can work with the beloved dead. And this is also a cool thing because it's one of the ways in which mainstream culture continues to honor ancestors as well. If you think about it, most families have some kind of special furniture, special china, special recipe that they consider to have been passed down from a beloved ancestor. And it's perfectly acceptable for everybody if you show respect to that, honor it, admire its beauty, etc. So this is a cool way, and we can just take it a little further with our magical technique and deepen that kind of a practice. So if you do happen to have special objects that were made by your ancestors, those are obviously perfect things to have on your new ancestor altar that we just started building. So you might not want to have them on there all the time. You might want to have them on there all the time. Just give it a try and see how it feels to you. You know, things like a plate or cup or dishware, jewelry, art. These are all things that could be on your altar and stay there for quite a long time and really add a connection between you and your ancestor. And what is that connection based on? Magically, we understand there is a very basic principle, which is that items which have been in contact with one another have shared energy and thus always remain in contact with one another. This is the principle behind the practice of psychometry, where people can read energy from objects. And it's also a fundamental part of our magical practice. It's why witches take great care with our nail clippings and our hair clippings, because these are objects that have been part of our own bodies and share the energy of our bodies. So if you think about the way science talks about objects these days, matter is actually energy vibrating at a particular rate. So this is perfect for magic workers because we understand everything as energy related. And so matter, these objects, these pieces of inherited jewelry or art are really just vibrations. And as such, they are very susceptible to charging or to shifts in vibration. So when that piece of jewelry was worn by your grandmother, your uncle, it was absorbing the energy. It was becoming in tune and aligned with the energy of that ancestor every time it was worn. So these are very potent ways to tune into the energy of those particular relatives. Likewise, something that was made by one of your ancestors, like their favorite recipe for apple pie or their favorite way to make coffee, those are energy patterns that you can step into and consider like heirlooms. They're precious pieces of information that have been passed on. As you step into them, as you practice them, as you recreate that same recipe, you are coming very close into alignment with the energy of whatever ancestor it was that made them and passed them on to you. So this is something, this is a principle called contagious magic by people who are interested in magic theory, and it's something to think about with lots of different stuff. It also helps you understand why people who practice psychometry and can read objects are able to obtain information. This is something every witch should practice and should learn how to do. We should all be able to pick up an object and feel it, whether it has good juju or bad juju, right? That's the starting point for this. And from there, you can develop this skill much more deeply. But it's really about quieting your doubts, trusting your inner voices, and allowing the message to arrive. It's as simple as that, right? So practice that with your heirlooms in particular. I wanted to also suggest a couple of other things, a couple other practices about heirlooms. Now, first of all, let's make clear that heirlooms are not just tangible objects. Not everybody has those kinds of tangible objects, people who have inherited jewelry or dishware. Some people have inherited other sorts of heirlooms. And like I said before, a recipe should be considered an heirloom, but so is a tradition or a hobby. So if everybody in your family plays bridge and you learned how to play bridge from your grandparents and your grandparents have now passed over, that's a very precious heirloom that you should think about using magically when you need to tune into your ancestors. Recipes I've talked about before, but not only are those probably going to be delicious when you make them, they're also ways that your ancestors thought about the world. They have physical activities that are associated with them, the movements, etc., of making a particular recipe. And these are things that when you recreate them, when you step into them, you are carrying on a long lineage of energy work. Very likely those recipes didn't just originate with a single person, but may have been skills that were passed on. Since so many of our relatives today in modern paganism were people who didn't necessarily have access to cookbooks or to lots of writing implements and paper, most of the recipes and especially also their hobbies were things that people learned from other family members. And so they grew up doing that stuff and they passed it on to you, and now you have the opportunity to pass it on to someone else. So here's one of a magical practice that you could think about, which is actually very profound, even though it seems very simple. I want you to consider what you would create that would become a future heirloom. We are all going to be ancestors at some point in time, sooner or later, and we hope that our families will remember us. One way that we can ensure that they will remember us is to leave tangible mementos of our presence. So whether that's an object or a less tangible piece of information like a skill, what would it be for you? What would you choose that you would want to pass on? And of course, it doesn't have to be only one thing. You may have many things that you wish to pass on. But if you are so inclined, I very much suggest that you create a tangible heirloom. And of course, this does not have to be anything elaborate. Some of the most precious heirlooms that I have in my house are things like aprons and hand towels that one of my grandmothers or great aunts made. They're things that were used every day. They have lots of their energy of those people in them. They were not fancy and they were not meant to be special, but they happen to be, I feel very fortunate that they were passed on to me. And to me, they carry even more energy of the person than the very fancy china that, let's be honest, sat on a shelf most of the time. So make an heirloom. Think about it. Even the process of thinking about it is interesting. Think about it and then do it. All right. Another little practice, and this may not sound so magical, but it's very important for people who do ancestor work, is to record in written form the stories you have about the heirlooms that you own, if you have any. We all think that we're going to remember these stories forever and ever, but we just don't. So it's really important that you write that stuff down and put it on in a couple of different places. It's excellent to have it very close to the actual object itself, if it's something like, an armoire or a framed piece of art. But you should also have a copy on your laptop or someplace else safe that somebody else could find if they needed to. This is a piece of insurance, a piece of magic you're doing so that these objects will continue to be respected and understood for the potent pieces of memory that they are. Hopefully you received that kind of information about the object when you inherited it, or you probably heard some stories at least, and it would really be great for you to write that down. Somebody in the future will be thanking you for having done that. Another thing that's cool about heirlooms that a lot of people don't realize is that they can be very helpful for doing genealogical research. So if you're trying to find out more about your actual ancestors in terms of the dates that they lived or the places that they lived or where they emigrated from, these objects can actually help you with that. Sometimes we forget that in our world today, where we have so many choices of so many different kinds of materials that we could buy that are made in so many different parts of the world, that life has not always been like that. So most of the time, even going back less than 100 years ago, people had many fewer objects that they could choose from to use in their homes and to use on a daily basis. And so where they obtained those objects were relatively limited. And with research, you can probably find out exactly where something came from, which would really help you know then where your ancestors lived. So a lot of people have done that, and if you're interested in trying to figure out actual family history from some heirloom that you have, you might want to go online and do some research that way. Finally, I just want to wrap up by saying that I hope you're enjoying this new podcast on the beloved dead, and I hope that you're feeling your beloved dead more closely as we move into this time of the year when we're surrounded by family and memories, or the long nights of the middle of wintertime. This is perfect for reflecting upon how you want to continue doing ancestor work in the spring. I'll be back soon with another episode. Thanks, and blessed be.
Those who have died have never left. The dead have a pact with the living. Is the ancestors' breath in the voice of the water.
Hello everyone, this is Lady Bridget, and yes, it's time for another shameless plug. No, seriously. We just came back from Turning the Tides 2017, which was in December in Miami, and it was just amazing. We had an awesome time. So you probably want to mark your calendars for sometime next year. Usually it's the second weekend in December. If you can make it, look for it on the emlc.net website next year. But if you didn't make it, there's still hope, because Equinox in the Oaks is coming up. And even though that is not something that Everglades Moon Local Council specifically sponsors, many of our members are on the staff of that amazing festival. And Equinox in the Oaks for 2018 is going to be held April 5th through the 8th. And the theme this year is The Trees and Beyond. It's a really great festival. It is called an immersion, spiritual immersion weekend. And as I said, a lot of the members of Everglades Moon Local Council are instrumental in putting on this festival. Part of the festival, we're going to feature a workshop called Meet EMLC. So if you've ever wanted to be part of Everglades Moon Local Council, and you do live in Florida, come on down and you can meet us and we'll talk to you about joining. We'll give you all the membership information that you need and tell you what you need to do to join. So Equinox in the Oaks, April 5th through the 8th, 2018 in Pearson, Florida. The Trees and Beyond. Don't miss it. If you Google Equinox in the Oaks, you'll find their Facebook page. Like them on Facebook, and then as soon as everything starts coming up, like the registration page and so forth, you'll be able to register for this year's festival and not miss a thing. Hope to see you there. And now back to our regular program.
Hey everybody, this is Alpandia, and I'm sitting here with Coyote Morningstar, who is a member of Everglades Moon Local Council, and we're going through getting to know the various members of our local council. So I do appreciate you sitting down and talking to me, Coyote, and I have a list of questions for you if you're game.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay, so inquiring minds want to know, what is the tradition that you practice?
I was trained and initiated in the Morganic Wiccan tradition. Over the years, I've added other things, fairy seership, bits and pieces from other traditions that I won't name because I don't really can't claim them. But it's been a very eclectic journey.
It sounds like it was fun, though.
Yes.
It's been fun.
Yes.
And how long have you been practicing?
I have been practicing since '96. Can't do the math right now, but yes. So I was initiated in '96.
So how did you get started with the tradition you practice?
I was dating a witch, and he decided that he wanted to create a tradition. He was very well read and very dedicated as far as study goes. So I said, sure, why not? So together we created the tradition.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So what's something about your tradition that you practice that most people would be surprised to hear?
We hold fictional stories of a particular mythic quality to be essential to our tradition as far as teaching tools. Mist of Avalon is probably the number one fictional story that we draw on for inspiration. But Star Wars is another one.
Okay.
And there are others out there.
There's a lot of different traditions that kind of draw on that, some of those essences like the Force and
exactly.
And that's a really good way, I think, to also get new people who are learning your tradition to have a frame of reference for what you're doing.
Yes, absolutely.
Yay. So, are there any misconceptions about that people might have about regarding people who follow your path?
I'm not real sure about that. We don't really talk about our tradition with other people that often, so I don't really get a sense of what other people think about it. But one thing I would probably think is that because we are inspired by fiction, some people might think that it's fluffy or not serious or something like that. But I would tell them we take a very strong Joseph Campbell type view about stories and myths, and so our use of myth and story is well founded.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how else to say that. Yeah.
So if someone was interested in learning more about what you believe, is there a book, a specific book or other reference material that you would refer them to?
Mist of Avalon.
Does the author, I just forgot her name.
Marion Zimmer Bradley.
Zimmer Bradley.
Yes. Mist of Avalon specifically. Anything by John or Caitlin Matthews. And I would say Joseph Campbell's The Story of Myth. Or The Power of Myth.
The Power of Myth.
That's
yes. An amazing both book, and then I know that's on PBS all the time too.
And the video series, correct? Yes.
So, in your tradition, do you celebrate the traditional 8 Wiccan Sabbats?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
How would someone who was looking to join your tradition do so, and how do they progress? Or do you have different levels of like first degree, second degree in your tradition?
So yeah, we do have we have first, second, and third degrees. We have a dedicant level for anybody that would like to learn. Teaching is on a one-on-one basis. Kind of old school that way. We have, or I should say we're kind of on a slow side right now. But we had open circles, and you could, dedicants could learn that way as well. But we do also have a very extensive reading list, which is probably common, or hopefully common, to many traditions.
Right. Does your tradition work with a specific pantheon of gods and goddesses?
Well, it's open. Each member in the tradition is encouraged to find their own deities, their own matron and patron.
Okay.
Our coven and grove our matron of that coven and grove is Bridget, the Celtic goddess. So we draw a lot on Celtic and Arthurian story and myth.
Okay. How does your tradition view the universe?
That's a good question. How does I would say the universe, our tradition views the universe as the Great Mother. She whose body encircles the universe. The universe is the goddess. Like the earth is the goddess, Gaia. The universe is the Great Mother.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, does your tradition believe that the god and goddess that the gods and goddesses are individual entities, that they are, or are they archetypes, or are they like manifestations of an overarching energy or deity?
When our tradition first started, we fell in line with the general Wiccan belief that all the gods are one god, all the goddesses are one goddess, and the god and goddess are one. Lately, in the last few years, I've come to a more hard polytheistic view of the gods, and that they're more individual than that. I still kind of believe they're all emanations of one divine energy, but that one divine energy has no personality per se. So the hard polytheism serves that purpose as far as a god and goddess for each person kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does your tradition do magic, and do you teach your students to do magic?
We don't rely heavily on magic. We do teach it. We advise that magic is a last resort type of thing, and that it's our experience that, or it's my experience, that doing it that way puts more power into it when it is done. Not to do it frivolously for any little thing. Do it for great need. Again, years later, I've kind of taken a little different view on that. I do magic a little more often. But in the early days of the tradition, it was a last resort type of thing.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you taking some time with me. Is there anything else that you'd like to say about the path that you followed?
I would like to say it was an honor being in the early stages of the formation of our tradition. It's called the Morganic Tradition, after Morgan Le Fay. No, I guess I don't really have anything. You can scratch that last part.
We can scratch that last part. Yeah, we'll tell Lady Bridget to scratch that last part.
Yes.
To where it starts to be kind of
Yeah.
And then we'll pick back up from here. Well, Coyote, I do appreciate you sitting down with me and giving not just me, but everybody who listens a new view of a new tradition that's part of what makes EMLC so great.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Blessed be.
Blessed be.
Hi everyone! Before we begin our last segment of this episode, we'd like to thank you for listening. Putting a podcast together is a time-consuming labor of love, but knowing that someone is listening to our hard work and hopefully gaining something from it makes it worthwhile. Would you let us know you like the podcast? By going to our website at emlc.net, click on the podcast tab, and write a comment. Tell us what you like and what you'd like to hear more of on our podcast. And even better, why not leave us a rating on iTunes? Ratings help us become more visible to more people. It's not about ego, it's all about service. Thank you, and blessed be.
And our last song is called Round the World for Sport, and it's by Emerald Rose on their album Celtic Crescent. You can learn more about Emerald Rose and purchase their music at emeraldrose.com. Blessed be.